That's loud. I'll just turn it down. Wait, where's the options? If you're here, that means you want to know, should you buy To the Moon? To the Moon is a narrative-heavy RPG released in 2011, published by Freebird Games. The first thing you might think when you see the aesthetic of this game is that it looks like it was made in the RPG Maker. And you'd be right. You'd also struggle to articulate these thoughts if you hadn't turned down your volume prior, as it assaults your ears. As soon as the intro shot is finished, you'd want to turn it down as soon as possible in the options menu, which doesn't exist. This was my initial impression of this game when I first booted it up. Not off to a good start. These negatives, however, were quickly quashed as I started up the game. You are introduced to two characters in a bit of a predicament. Now, visually, everything looks simplistic, but it gets what it needs to across. Did a car crash? That smoking car firmly pressed into the pole is enough to show that an accident has happened without needlessly high-resolution cutscenes. When the dialogue starts, you straight away see the characteristics of each person, seemingly contradicting each other, yet not possessing much of each other's traits, showing how they can get into quarrels a lot, yet still show how they kind of need each other to work off. The building of character is very well done throughout the whole game, usually starting off a bit cliché with common tropes, but soon developing into very unique characters. This carries over to the other characters too, really making it easier to make matching voices in your head that fits each character. Something that really benefits a game of this style, as bad voice acting could have really jarred the experience of such a story-based game. When player control is taken over, you'll see that there are prompts that tell you what to do, usually showing the button to press, followed by what it does. Gameplay in this game is very simple. On the occasion you are presented with something close to a game mechanic, it's in the form of a simple tile puzzle, progressing in difficulty as the game goes on, barely demanding much player input. When instruction is given, it's not very intrusive at all. Now, I would mark down a game that has such minimal gameplay, having gameplay you'd see in a basic flash puzzle game, but the story in this game is its main selling point. When you start the game, you're dropped into things. Not much is given, but when information is given, it's paced in such a way that you want to know more rather than getting annoyed from knowing nothing. I will talk more about the story of the game at the end, as if you decide you want the game at any point of this review, it's a better experience to not know anything about the story before going in. The music in this game is something notable to mention, especially for an indie game like this. Each song really sets the mood for each scene without being too obvious about it. When an emotional scene plays out, you'll hear a simplistic, heartwarming melody. When a slapstick scene plays, the music isn't too over the top, but is a jovial piece. On top of this, each song is well timed and loops seamlessly, which doesn't jar the experience while it hums in the background as you sink deeper into the dialogue. This is important since the experience is heavily text-based, and anything that stands out or is wrong audibly can easily distract players and ultimately dampen the experience. A feature which is common nowadays, but I didn't expect in this game, was an autosave feature. I can't count how many times I've lost progress, sometimes hours in these types of games, because this feature wasn't present. This can often deter players on how severe the loss is, so it's a welcome addition and worthy enough to note. The game can be completed in under 5 hours, which isn't long for this kind of game. This can actually be a downfall, as to make this game retain full game value, it has to have good replay value, which it doesn't. Now, I've blabbed long enough about the smaller details, and if you haven't decided whether or not you want the game yet, I'll now start talking about the story. You start off in control of two doctors visiting an old man in a coma, but you're not there to save him. You are part of a private organisation called Sigmund Corp, a company that uses technology that creates artificial memories. They offer a wish fulfillment service to people who are nearing death, and Johnny, the patient, hasn't got long left to live. There are a lot of questions raised as you explore. Why is the house so close to a cliff? Why is there an abandoned lighthouse behind the house? Why are there locked rooms filled with origami rabbits? All of these seemingly uncorrelated things are developed into big plot points as you enter the mind of Johnny to fulfill his request. What is his request? Well, it's quite simple. He wants to go to the moon. When asked why, he says he doesn't know. The doctors tell him that they have to give the gold to him as a child, so it develops through his life, and to do so, they'd have to traverse through his memories backwards until they reach him as a child. There, they will implant the desire to go to the moon, and he will fixate his life to accomplish this. Which, at that point, you break through different barriers around objects which hold memories that act as stepping stones, progressing backwards through Johnny's life. This is what I found personally unique about the game. The narrative is told backwards, which isn't an easy thing to do and isn't seen that often. This is an idea which, if I was told about it, I'd say it'd have to be done right, but if it was, then it'd truly be a worthwhile experience. This game, for me, has pulled it off. The most vague way I can describe it is, imagine watching a train wreck backwards. You start at the mess and slowly uncover the events leading up to the conclusion, rather than the other way around. Knowing how something ends adds more meaning to the events leading to the conclusion. As I ended my sessions of playing this game, I found myself eager to start it back up and delve more into the mysteries of the game. Every time I'd play, I'd have found more answers, yet had so many more questions. This keeps things fresh as they weren't running certain plot points dry through stretched pacing. As I said before, the game is short and doesn't do much to draw you back in for a second playthrough, but the one experience you have with the game is something I can wholeheartedly recommend. So, if you haven't decided how you feel about this game yet, I'll now go through my final recommendation. Nearly all my aesthetic issues with this game are vastly outweighed by the positives. You have a rich narrative with the perfect pacing for a story which isn't dragged along at a snail's pace and isn't shot at you seeping with adrenaline. So, if that draws you in, I'd say I definitely recommend it. The only drawback is the length and lack of replayability. The game is listed rather cheap, but with the age of this game, you aren't missing any more by waiting for this game to possibly drop in price. So, personally, I'll give this game a buy it on sale.